Welcome to Leadership and People. This is a series that pulls back the curtain on leadership by interviewing CEOs, senior executives, and entrepreneurs who've had large exits. We ask these experts about how they built trusted networks to rapidly grow their companies and what advice they wish they knew if they could do it all again. Today on the show, we've got Reed Laws.
And so what I've learned along the way is I was in the way. And as soon as I captured, come on, Reed, bow out, let somebody who can really do this take over, is when success started happening. Not just success monetarily wise, that did happen too, but success as a leader and recognizing where you're good and where you're not.
Reed, thanks for making time.
Yes, thank you.
So for people that don't know your employment solutions, give us the elevator pitch.
Okay, Your Employment Solutions is a staffing agency that caters to the light industrial parts of industries and administrative, so your office, your clerical, entry level, and then I guess on the industrial side, it's your manufacturing and production, warehouse type jobs out there. So what happens is we're not marriage counselors, or it would be a relationship. We bond them together as we find clients that need workers. We will go out and find the workers that meet the client's needs. And then after the clients test drive them for a little bit, they get to decide if they want to keep the individual or not.
And do I understand you guys have been doing this for like 23 years now? Does that sound about right?
1996 is when I was hired on, yes. Yep, that's close.
And how long have you been the president then?
Since 1999.
Okay. Well, a show here, the show is obviously called Leadership and People. There's a lot of different ways we could go on that. One of the ones we like to start with a lot of time is a leader, maybe early in your career or somebody that you still look up to. Is there somebody that comes to mind of the kind of who embodies the kind of leadership characteristics that you admire?
Yes, it's a local guy. He's out of Centerville. When I first started here at Yes, I'm 21 years old, and by the time I buy the company, I'm 24 years old. And not only do I have little business experience, but I have zero leadership experience outside of your friends and growing up, that type of thing. His name is David Riley, and at the time, he's the CEO of Pro Image Sports. Pro Image Sports is a sporting goods outfit that has 150 stores around the country where you go buy Jazz hats or your team hat and hoodies and any novelty of your favorite NBA, NFL teams. And he was really involved with my success and leadership early. And his demeanor is what taught me that I would watch really closely. He was as firm as it took, but at the same time recognized that I was a rookie. You couldn't push too hard, but you could push hard enough without breaking me. And I would just mimic and listen to him, and he knows how to make a crowd laugh and at the same time make a crowd listen to him intently. It's just everything about him would just bleed leadership. And so I did everything I possibly could to suck all of that up and mimic him as much as I could, with my own style, of course.
Yeah. It's interesting that kind of balance beam of how do you walk in the middle of that, huh? When you think about maybe some of the rest of us that would like to become more like that, I mean, you having him model those traits for you, what kind of advice would you have for us?
The first word that came to mind is patience. Good leaders understand that every individual has something magnificent to bring to themselves, a corporation, a group of people, nonprofits. And the goal is, from a leader, is how do you tap into all that value that they have to offer? How do you bring that out for them to showcase? I think far too often it's I'm the leader, do as I say, rather than do what you're good at. Not even do as I do. He didn't expect me to do what he did. We are in different industries. I couldn't. But he did expect the best out of me, and he did challenge. He challenged everything. He challenged my thought processes. Why would I collect this way? Or why would I talk to a client this way? Why do I want to bring a new client on? What value do they bring? And it just opened up my mind of, man, there's a whole lot that goes into this rather than just putting a dollar on the bottom line. What's the value going to bring in 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Not even dollar, but for you. So I think the impact was simply, he was super patient, but he did challenge everything.
Yeah, it's interesting how most of us get ahead earlier in our careers, um, by being efficient, by getting stuff done yesterday, and a lot of times by being that individual performer, right? And then when we get one day, blessed with you are now a leader, whether that's a promotion, whether that's starting your own business, however that happens, right? And all of a sudden the game becomes about what you can get other people to do. It seems like a lot of us, especially maybe the more ambitious folks, have that, maybe that intensity to get it done yesterday. Um, do you have any stories of things that while he was direct with you, here's a specific time, or here's an example of being patient with with you being a rookie?
Yes, yes, and this is going to be super embarrassing, especially since anybody and everybody can hear this. Is
Best time.
sometimes the learning what you should not do by being patient is far more valuable than the other way around. Early, or as I was a rookie, as you stated, I was in charge not only as leadership, but collecting money. We were a much smaller company at the time. And everybody knows cash is king and you need that money to move the company forward. Well, one of my good buddies was one of my clients. He was a buddy before he was even one of my clients, but over a few years became one of our clients. Well, they had payment terms and they exhausted their first round of they didn't pay me on time. In other words, they were late or didn't pay me at all. Dave had come to me and said, Reed, what's going on here? My rebuttal to him simply was, look, he's my buddy. I know we're going to get the money. Trust the system type of a deal. And he said, okay. Well, my buddy didn't pay the next time around. So now we're a month behind, and that equated to almost the amount that it came to nearly put us into bankruptcy less than a year after I bought the company. Dave bought the company with me. There's 4 owners. Dave's one of the 4 owners. And it nearly put us into bankruptcy. So that whole American dream was slipping through my fingers so quickly. We did dig out of that, and it took time, meaning years. But the lesson learned there was, I don't think Dave would intentionally say, hey, let's put this company near bankruptcy to give Reed a lesson. I think it was more of he trusted me, but I didn't trust the system. I didn't follow protocols. And that one leadership lesson and being patient with me after it happened, I mean, one, area A, does he rake me over the coals and say, what did you do? Look what you about did. Or B, do you sit down and say, there's nothing we can do about it now. Let's move forward. Let's discuss patiently what happened and what are the repercussions. So that one incident alone was pretty much, that one always comes to the top of my head. That is the most vivid. I can still have emotion about that, but the way he handled it said, that's the type of leader I want to be.
You know, it's interesting how here we are, whatever it is, 22 years later, and that's still so front and center for you. Makes me think about that Dale Carnegie story of John Rockefeller had somebody, take a bunch of their money down to South America trying to do a deal and lost 50% of it. And when he got back, he was just sweating bullets of, what it was going to be like to see the boss, the richest man in the world, right? And what Rockefeller says to him is, man, I'm sure glad you were able to save 50% of it. Sometimes we don't do that well upstairs, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of, the kid has probably beaten himself up enough already, right? And isn't that the kind of guy that you want to do well for instead of resenting for raking you over the coals, right?
I think he understood, much like your analogy, the butt kickings had already been done. And I don't think about it much anymore. It's a great story and it was a great lesson learned, but there's nothing he could have said or done that I already hadn't accomplished myself, and a bunch more than that, times 10. So I think he recognized that this is an opportunity to, make or break this guy with the decisions that he made, and thankfully he did it that way. I'm not quite sure what would have happened because I've got pretty thick skin, but I was vulnerable at this stage, and thank goodness he was able to understand that and teach me a different way. So yeah,
Well, you
yeah,
think about even if it wouldn't have been terrible, he probably would have missed the chance to earn that undying love from you. You know what I mean? That extra commitment that he gained by, he probably had some feelings about it, but being willing to bite his tongue
sure he
about
did.
them, right? What he
His
gained from
feelings
you.
might have been, why did I hire this guy? And my feelings were, why did he hire this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure some of that was there.
Yeah. Thinking about your own leadership and you know being the president, you said since '99. What is that? 19 years now.
Hmm.
Um, what are some of the lessons you wish you would have learned earlier along that path?
You know what? I've got, again, one of these that comes to my mind quickly is, for whatever reason in the beginning, I had to be the best at everything. Because as a leader, you feel like you do is, hey, watch how I take out the trash. I'm the leader. I do it the best. I do it most efficient. And look at my timeliness. I mean, something silly like that. Or I didn't even want people vacuuming because I could vacuum. I didn't want people collecting money because I could collect better. I had better relationships. I didn't want people cutting paychecks because I could stuff envelopes faster than the rest of them, or I could use the 10 key. And as time moves on with a leader is I started to recognize, and talk about a big dose of reality and a humility check, is I started to realize that not only was I not good at those, I was nowhere near the best. Not even close. The company didn't even start growing and succeeding until I could put my pride aside and say, oh my gosh, my daughter or my partner may have had somebody that worked for us, and they could just run circles around all of any. I mean, you pick it. It's I've got departments now that are run by leaders that truly believe, and man, they are passionate about their department, and I can't even touch what they can do. And so what I've learned along the way is I was in the way. And as soon as I captured, come on, Reed, bow out, let somebody who can really do this take over, is when success started happening. Not just success monetarily wise, that did happen too, but success as a leader and recognizing where you're good and where you're not. So I think that's my best example of what have I learned along the way.
Yeah. Why do you think? Why do you think there's so many temptations for leaders not to let go? Why do you think? Why do you think we all hate being micromanaged? Why do you think we're so tempted to micromanage?
I think your letting go is a good question. For me, the hardest thing about letting go, it's admitting that you're not needed. It's an admission of not only are you not needed, but somebody's more capable. And not that it's just somebody, tons of people can do it. So this thing that you've been holding on to is an admission. The second one that came to my mind was when you start a company and you're growing it and you're wearing every single hat and you work that hard, it's like you're holding this baby and you're handing it to somebody else, expecting them to raise and teach the way you would. It's yours. You created this thing and then just put it in somebody else's hand and have the same faith that they would do it the way you would have. I think that's why we do that. That's why and as we become stronger and better leadership or leader, our leadership starts to strengthen. We realize that's not the case, but yeah, I'm hoping that answers your question why we tend to do that.
I'm thinking about that transition because, specifically on the entrepreneurial side, so many of us start a business in something that we're good at ourselves. And it's almost like, we're good at playing the violin, so we start an orchestra, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like what you're talking about is, the primary role of the leader is to be the guy up front waving the wand around, not playing, sitting in the chairs playing the violin or the oboe,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right.
Um, and any advice for folks who are maybe struggling to let go of the violin and just stand up at the front full time?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how well the advice would be taken, but for me, is if you're a great violin player, then be the great violin player and know your spot. If you can't get out of the way, and you can't lead and play and be up front at the same time, you've got to make a decision. So if you want to be the leader, you've got to trust in your team, and that's where I failed in the beginning too. Is that's why I didn't hand them over, and why it hurt my feelings per se that they could do the job better than I can. Is I didn't trust them, and but again, over time, it things cleared up, and I saw a different perspective. But if you don't trust your people, why do you have them there? I just had a really hard time in the beginning stages, and I would admit even today sometimes, do I have the right people? Are they in the right roles? Do I trust them? And so I'm still working on how do I become a better leader, or how do I trust somebody that I don't know well, I don't have years of experience with, and all I'm going off is referrals or maybe some words written on a piece of paper. So I'm not sure that for me at this point, it hasn't completely gone away, but it's certainly gotten better.
Yeah. A topic that's been discussed like crazy, but so many of us in leadership positions are still not good at it. So it's probably worth rediscussing is, that time you finally have to start coming face to face with the thing you've been trying to ignore, which is that staff member that you like as a person is not the right fit,
Mm-hmm.
and that you need to make a change. And so many leaders talk about how many of the mistakes were prolonging it and letting it drag out. And any thoughts about how to help us make the change once we know it needs to happen, instead of under the guise of being nice, or for whatever, avoiding conflict, or for whatever reason, that we let it drag on even after we realize somebody isn't the right one for that position?
Right. So you're saying we've hired somebody that you thought was going to do the job for whatever particular area. You have a really good relationship with them, and so maybe that helped make your decision, only to find out at some point in time that it was the wrong choice, and so you have to confront that.
Yeah, or the industry or the company changes so much that the position just isn't the same anymore, but
Yeah,
you still like them.
both of those have happened. Is so let's start with the first, because I have worked with individuals here. Some of them are still here, some of them aren't. That the company has outgrown their ability. At one point, it was perfect; they could handle it. But as we started to grow, it became too much, and the expertise behind it outgrew them as well. So I don't know that I have any advice or the secret sauce that fixes it for anybody. But those are the scenarios that you have to look at the big picture. And I'm not very good at a lot of things, but I think this one I'm very good at doing is you have to look at the whole. Right now we have 35 full-time staff members, and you say, is this one staff member worth possibly hurting the other 34? Are the other 34 talking about him? Or can you believe he's in that spot? That you have to look at it from a long-term perspective, and not just that one individual. But at the same time say, okay, he's done some good things for us. He shows that he's dedicated, he's on time, he's punctual, and man, does he or she try really hard. Where is a place that we can put this individual, because they have value, and find a place for them? There's times we've even created a position because this person had so much to offer. It's just that the other position outgrew them. We've also done that with clients themselves, so it has nothing to do with internal. But as the company shifted, the hardest thing that you ever have to do is go to one of your customers and say, we're bowing out for these reasons. Hey, we've worked together for 10 years, and but I don't think our relationship is very good anymore. Most of the time, I think people would say that something's gone sour, they haven't paid their bills. I got to tell you, we've gone to some that it just no longer was a good marriage anymore. They always paid their bills on time. And some of them were our own fault. We couldn't deliver what we promised them. And so we have to have the integrity go to them and say, do you remember this conversation? They may say yes or no if they remember it. Look, this is what I promised you. I'm having a hard time delivering this product to you. Can we talk about it a little bit? Is it me? Are you part of the problem? We've had some of those happen as well. And sometimes you dump them, and sometimes you get to move forward because you've had the transparent conversation. But I think those constantly happen through evolution of the company, through growth, through change in strategy, maybe changing environments a little bit. I don't know that that ever goes away. But I think it's something that you need to handle quickly, but you do it softly, and you care for the person, and sometimes money seems to run people's decisions rather than what really should run them, which is people, relationships, and long term thoughts like that.
Yeah, I love, and I know we're closing in on the end of part one of the episode here, but I really love the way you framed that, because it does seem like the temptation when you think about money and the short term is to keep limping by, or to maybe ignore the fact that we realize we're not really firing on all cylinders, right? But it's that, like, having some faith that doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time will always be better for the long term, maybe. I don't know. Would you say it different than that?
I would, if it's not alluded to monetary, then I would agree with your statement that sometimes when you think long term, it's, this is going to pay back. And it doesn't always pay back with dollars. What it can pay back is a myriad of other things. But I think your comment is fine and would agree with it, but it doesn't always just mean it's money. It's some way, somehow, doing the right thing, treating people fairly always pays back. Yes.
Yeah, it pays in self-respect, pays in, employees following the example you set. There's all sorts of ways it could get paid back, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. I think that's a great place to end for part one. Everybody, please tune into our next episode. We're going to keep hearing what Reed has learned in this career of his. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.